or it's inconclusive.
Correct.
Now, at this particular stage comparison phase, what did you determine in this case? That based on?
That these two set of fingerprints were from the same source.
So states number 27, is that correct? And states number 28 are from the same source,
Yes.
meaning that the fingerprints that you compared are of the same source.
Yes.
And what about the B stage, the verification stage?
I spelled trial wrong. God damn it.
I give my paperwork to us for them to the technical verification of the work that I did.
Okay, and after, and before your verification step, you indicated earlier that there's some markings on the document. Are those markings, when are those markings made?
When?
Yes.
When I do my report.
So throughout the evaluation stage, before the verification stage, you're making determination in writing.
Yes.
And that's placed on a report?
Yes.
Your Honor, will you confirm? Your Honor, can I retrieve the evidence from the witness?
Yes.
And at this time, the state's requesting to publish states 27 and 28.
You may.
Publishing states 27.
Excuse me, Garrett.
And you should be able to see it in front of your screen, but states 27, indicated the markings. Are those at the top left right here that I'm pointing to?
Yes.
Those markings that you've made?
Yes.
Now publishing states 28. And the markings that you referred to in states 28, are those here that I'm pointing to on the bottom right?
Yes.
And you indicated that the source of the identification on states 28 and on states 27 were the same source.
Yo, that side, yo. Yo, fix your shirt. Yo, change, take that shirt off, yo.
Nothing further.
What's up? What you want?
Officer's name, cross-examination. This witness excused.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. You may step down. You're excused. Consequent court, next witness.
After the consent of state will be publishing the additional video from state 7, and we'll be doing a 30 minute evidence. I'm showing it to the witness evidence as well. Your Honor, pursuant to public records, I'm moving to evidence and remark in state CC as the next state's number exhibit. I've previously shown it to counsel.
Is there any objection?
Yo. They always do that when I want you to hear what they talking about. Like a sidebar. That boy was locked up last time. Fuck are they doing? That's something they doing on the screen. Oh, they took it off. God damn. That shit right, baby.
Publishing of States Exhibit 29. Now, Senate State resumes publishing of State 7. Channel 1, October 26, 2018, time on video 0208. Channel 1, October 26, 2018, time on video 21111.
The 2023 Kia Sportage was built for more. More room for your passengers, more cargo space for your things. Simply put, more room for adventure. Where the road takes you, the Kia Sportage is ready to accommodate. Stop in and see us at the summer sales event. Grab a fantastic offer and get behind the wheel of your new Kia. Channel 3, 10/26, 2018, 211. Channel 3, 10/26, 18, 217, 34.
Channel 3, 1026, 18, 219, 35. Ten 2018, 22007. Ten 2018, 221, 28. Ten 2018, 0228, 38. Ten 2018, 211, 10, Channel 4. Channel 4, 1026, 2018, 217, 43. 4, 10, 26, 2018, 02, 21, 37. Channel 4, 10, 26, 2018, 02, 28, 54. Channel 6, 10, 26, 18, 02, 10, 56. Channel 6, 10, 26, 18, 02, 11, 28. Channel 6, 10, 26, 2018, 02, 17, 33. 10/26, 2018, 02, 21, 28. Channel 6, 10/26, 2018, 02, 22, 42. Channel 6, 10/26, 2018, 02, 24, 29. Channel 6, 10/26, 2018, 02, 25, 34. Channel 7, 10, 26, 2018, 02, 11, 03. Channel 7, 10, 26, 18, 02, 11, 10. Channel 7, 10, 26, 2018, 02, 17, 36. Channel 7, 10, 26, 2018, 02, 20, 11. Channel 7, 10, 26, 2018, 02, 21, 32. Channel 7, 10, 26, 18, 02, 28, 48.
Without the ones like you working tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. No matter your industry, Grainger's here for you with professional grade supplies. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
you all set, ready to go?
Yes, sir. That's what you're doing. The last set of photographs.
We first, Your Honor. Record, please. State Farm versus Denton, President of the Defendant's Counsel, and Assistant State Attorneys. There's a journal, you want to coach. On the sidebar. Side.
We're picking up where Eli Gemstone left off, America's Jesus daddy.
It's time! These are not people of God! They're charlatans!
let the record reflect the presence of the defendant, Mr. Devens, his counsel, assistant state attorneys, and related to the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, glad to the state is still on this case in chief, so I'm going to ask prosecutor, Ms. Bradley, what you're going to put. Christopher Carter, please. Thank you. Good morning, are you Mr. Carter?
Yes, sir.
Welcome. Come on up here to the store witness stand. When you get up there, sir, what I'd like you to do is just remain standing for a bit. Raise your right hand. You sworn?
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you share in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Please state your full legal name for the record. Chris Brown. You spell the first and last name.
KRISGHER CARTER.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Please have a seat. All right, that microphone in front of you will just up and down, not back and forth.
Sorry to repeat that.
It'll go up and down, but not back and forth. Great.
Sir.
Councilman?
Thank you. Good morning. How are you today?
Good yourself.
Could you please introduce yourself to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury and say where you work?
I'm a crime scene investigator for the City of Fort Lauderdale Police Department.
And so, Investigator Carter, how long have you been with the city of Fort Lauderdale as a crime scene investigator?
I am coming up on 4 years as an investigator with the City of Fort Lauderdale.
Prior to working for the city of Fort Lauderdale, where did you work?
I worked for the Miramar Police Department.
What did you do for the Miramar Police Department?
I was a crime scene technician for about 3 years.
What were your job responsibilities as a crime scene technician for the city of Miramar?
To respond to crime scenes and observe, document, collect, and preserve evidence.
When 3 years you were there, can you give us a rough time frame?
I started about August of 2016 and transferred to Fort Lauderdale July of 2019.
What types of training and education do you have to work in crime scene?
I got my associate's degree at the Trialk College in crime scene and also have over 100 hours of training related to forensics and crime scene investigation.
Are you required to do continual training on a yearly basis?
When able to do the budgetary reasons, yes.
With regards to the training and stuff that you've completed with the Miramar Police Department before you started engaging in cases, can you describe a little bit about that?
The training that I went through, like I said, was the associate's degree in the program through Trialk College, and within that you are taught how to respond to crime scenes, how to observe crime scenes, how to observe evidence on crime scenes, and how to properly document and preserve those pieces of evidence and collect them.
Are you trained specifically in areas such as photography?
Yes.
What types of training and experience do you have in photography and documenting and writing?
During the associate's degree, I went through a particular class that was geared towards forensic photography, and that was aside from the main forensics degree program.
For forensic photography, what type of equipment do you use?
You use a digital camera, a external light source typically to better illuminate the pieces of evidence without a flash, and that's about it.
I want to go to October 26th of 2018. Did you have an occasion to be involved in a Miramar police case investigation under case number 18-10-06269?
Yes, it is.
At that point, where were you employed?
At the City of Miramar Police Department.
What was your role in that case at first?
I was requested to respond to the Broward County Medical Examiner's Office to observe the autopsies that were executed there, and also to process one of the decedents, and then later on to process the vehicle that was involved in the crime scene.
So at the medical examiner's office, can you describe to ladies and gentlemen of the jury where that's located?
It is located at Davie. I do not have an exact address, but
Is it within the city of Miramar?
no, it's not.
So after you left the medical examiner's office, did you return to the city of Miramar?
Correct.
You indicated you helped in processing a vehicle.
Correct.
Did you take photographs while you were processing that vehicle?
Yes, I did.
Approximately how many photographs did you take?
I believe it was around 422.
Prior to coming into court today, did you have a chance to review a much smaller selection of those 422 photographs?
Yes, I did.
Are these showing you what's been marked as states D for identification? It's a composite of photographs. Did you have an opportunity to look through these before you came into court today?
Yes, I did.
Do they fairly and accurately represent the photographs you took on October 26th of 2018?
They do.
You're at this time the state requesting states D and states 30 and published to the jury.
Is there any objection?
No.
So they'll be admitted as composites, is that correct?
That's correct, Your
How
Honor.
many photographs?
I have to double check on that. I believe it's right.
States DD and DD will be marked states 30. I'm sorry, what number? 30. Thank you.
Investigator Clark, you can touch the screen as well to indicate areas of interest. $65 photos, Your Honor.
Okay.
Starting with photo number 1. What is this?
This is a photo identifier that we would take prior to the crime scene to properly show the date the photographs were taken, the case number related to it, and type of case and the location where the photographs were taken.
What location is 2811 Southwest 186th Avenue?
That is the Miramar Police Department substation.
Okay. The next photo, what are we looking at here?
This is a piece of evidence tape that was used to seal the garage that the vehicle was kept in.
Can you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what is the evidence tape seal for?
The evidence tape seal is like issued these like seal to show that nobody has entered the premises from the time of when the investigators sealed the premises to when now I'm responding and photographing the seal.
Was this seal here at the bottom of the large doors still intact when you responded?
Yes, it was.
Moving on to the interior door. What are we looking at in this photograph?
Again, you were looking at a seal of evidence tape that was placed by the investigator prior to their leaving, and then when I arrived, I photographed the seal to show that it was still sealed on my way.
Moving on to the next photograph. What are we looking at here?
This is Detective Mark Lord, the search warrant for the vehicle.
The vehicle in question, what is it?
It was a Jeep Compass.
Is that the same that's indicated on that photo in the red lettered writing?
Yes.
Moving on to the next photo. What are we looking at in here? I'm going to zoom in here to the hood area.
That is another piece of evidence tape used to seal the vehicle in the same way that we sealed the premises prior to a search warrant. The vehicle and all its entries are sealed prior to the search warrant being executed.
So, for example, now looking at the screen down here at the bottom of the passenger side doors, that red item, is that the same evidence tape we've been looking at?
Yes, it is.
Moving on to the next photo. What are we looking at in this image?
This is showing the front passenger side portion of the vehicle.
Moving on to the next photo.
This is showing the exterior of the front passenger side and rear passenger side doors.
Have you begun executing and searching the search warrant at this point?
No, I have not.
So what is the purpose of all these exterior outside photos?
All these are to document the vehicle in which I found it when I responded to the search warrant, and all photos are taken prior to execution of the search warrant.
So again, going to the rear door seal, was that one still intact?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And the rear trunk seal, was that one still intact?
Yes, it was.
The initials MK that are on that, do you know who those belong to?
Yes, that is Michael Kelly, which
And-
was my supervisor at the time.
You read my mind as to my next question. On the back of this vehicle photo, what is the tag number of the Florida tag that is assigned?
India Echo Kilo Delta 22.
For those of us not in law enforcement, can you please translate?
IKD22.
The India Echo Kilo Delta that you just used, what is that commonly referred to? The alphabet.
Fanatical.
Going on, what are we looking at on this image?
This is showing the driver's side exterior of the vehicle.
And going to the seals on this particular item.
Sorry, read that.
The seals right here on this particular area or item of the door, was it intact?
Yes, it was.
Moving on to the front door seal at the bottom between the front driver's door and the rear driver's door. Was this seal also intact?
Yes, it was.
As to the state of the windows of the car, have they been manipulated in any way while you were taking these pictures?
No, they were not.
Moving on to the final picture of the evidence tape here on the driver's side door by the A column near the hood. Was this evidence seal still intact?
Yes, it was.
What was the VIN or vehicle identification number of this vehicle?
3C4N JDD B2 JT 198929.
The first photo that we're looking at here was now inside the vehicle. Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what you're documenting in this photo.
From here, I took photos of the exterior of the vehicle. Then the doors of the vehicle were opened up, and as is, without anything being moved or disturbed, photographs of the interior of the vehicle were collected.
So you say without being anything moved or disturbed. What do you do to make sure that you're not contaminating any of the evidence?
I wear gloves prior to each time touching the vehicle, and that goes with touching my equipment, going back to the vehicle, and vice versa.
The front passenger side view that we're looking at right here. Later on are the items collected.
Yes, they are.
And we'll get to that in a little bit. With what area of the car are we looking at here in this next photo? My apologies.
That is the area between the front passenger seat and the door jamb for the front passenger door.
Okay. The next photo, what are we looking at here?
That is the front passenger side floorboard.
Moving on here, the seats, did you manipulate them in any way before taking this photograph?
No, we did not.
Moving on into the next photograph, what are we looking at there?
Those are gold caps for teeth.
And so it's clear that that's a close-up photo from this rear passenger door. Is that a correct statement?
Yes, that's correct.
When we're looking out this rear passenger door, what are you documenting in this particular area?
I'm documenting the interior of the rear passenger door and the door jamb for the rear passenger door, as well as the seat and the floorboard of the rear passenger.
Moving on to the next image, what are we looking at in this photo?
That is a cement projectile.
So I'm going to go back a photo. Is that the same projectile that is down here?
Yes, it is.
Going forward again, what are we looking at in this image?
That is the rear passenger side floorboard and items that were found there.
Continuing to the next photo, what are you documenting in this image?
In this image, you can see the partial back of the front passenger side seat, the again floorboard of the rear passenger side floorboard, the rear passenger side seat, and a projectile hole that you can see the effect on the seat.
And so I'm going to zoom in on an area. Can you explain what you're talking about, the projectile hole?
Yes.
And you can use the screen to touch if you're to draw attention to certain areas.
I observed a defect in the seat that is later on gone into detail.
Okay. Moving on to the next image here. What are we looking at?
This is the rear passenger side seat as well as the rear center console and cup holders and partial of the rear driver's side seat.
This area in the center with the two spray cans, is that how you found it in the down position?
Yes, it was.
In this image here, can you describe a little bit about what's the red and white plastic item on the bottom of the floorboard? What is that?
That is a plastic bag.
Okay. What are you documenting in this image?
This image shows the trunk which had been opened, and in the photograph you can see the car manual and a jacket.
Did you disturb any of the glass? Did any of the glass move when you were opening that trunk?
Not that I recall.
What are you, in this next image, I'm going to go back one, did you open the rear trunk to get better photographs inside?
Correct.
Is this the interior of the rear trunk lid?
Yes, it is.
Can you kind of describe to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury as to how the trunk lid is, and how you're taking the pictures so they can orient themselves in space?
Correct. In this photo, the orientation is standing in the back of the vehicle. The hatch trunk is opened up, and I am looking upward at the interior of the trunk.
And so why did you take a picture of this white fuzzy stuff?
I observed a projectile defect.
Moving on to the next photo, what did you document here?
This is a yellow jacket that was found inside the trunk that I observed red stains on.
Why would you document red stains?
Because of presumptively would be blood.
Did you do any presumptive testing at this point?
Not at this point.
Moving on to this next image, what are we looking at here?
This is the rear driver's side seat. On the vantage point of the driver's side door. Shows the driver's side seat, the driver's side floorboard, as well as some of the cup holders and rear passenger side seat.
Next image, what are we looking at here?
This is also another photo of the rear driver's side and cup holder.
Next image, what are you focusing on in this particular image?
This photo shows the rear driver's side floorboard, which has a Gatorade bottle, a cap, and a white plastic bag.
Moving on to the next image, what are you showing here?
In this image, this shows the interior of the front driver's side door and somewhat of the interior of the front driver's side seat and floorboard.
Moving on to the next image here, what are you looking at?
This image shows the steering wheel partial of the front driver's side seat, the the center console and the side of the front passenger seats.
On the next image now, we have a little bit different. Why do you put these yellow numbers?
These numbers, at the time I called photo markers, now my agency I refer to them as placards, so I might refer to them also as placards, but these placards show and denote items of interest that will later be collected, and it's easier to recall back to a certain item and to show where that item is.
As you're documenting and collecting the evidence, do you use these photo markers in your reports and notes?
Yes, I do.
So, to go back to the photo of 1, 2, 3, 5, where did you collect the items at photo marker number 1?
Yes, I did.
Do you maintain the liquids that are inside of them when you worked at the Miramar Police Department?
I do not recall.
As to photo marker number 3, did you collect the items of evidence that were there next to photo marker number 3?
Yes, I did.
Moving on to photo marker number 6, did you collect the gold teeth that were in that pocket there?
Yes, I did.
Item number 7, did you collect that item?
Yes, I did.
And what was that?
That was the spent projectile.
For item that's at photo marker number 8, what was that and did you collect that?
I believe that is denoting the pair of shoes. Yes, I did.
And to go to a better picture for photo marker number 9, did you collect the item at photo marker number 9?
Yes, I did.
And what was that?
That is a cell phone.
As to photo marker number 10, did you collect the 2 Sprite cans that were there?
Yes, I did.
Going on to the rear of the vehicle, photo markers 12, 13, and 14. Did you collect the various items listed in this photo?
Yes, I did.
Did you have help and assistance in processing this vehicle?
Yes, I did.
Who helped you?
Crime scene technician Trialk.
Did you guys have a plan of attack as to how to process the vehicle?
We split up the vehicle into certain sections, and each processes areas of the vehicle and collected the items that were in relation to those areas.
So it's clear to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what section were you assigned?
I was assigned to the driver's side of the vehicle.
In your report, how did you write down which side you were responsible for?
In the report, it shows that swabs were taken from the passenger side of the vehicle, which was which was incorrect in the report, and was later shown as a correction in the driver's receipts, as well as the original swab boxes that were collected on the scene.
So let's stop for a second there and explain when you're collecting swabs, what are you doing?
I am using sterile distilled water and placing that onto a cotton swab and passing that over, rubbing that over an area that in which I either believe there may be the presence of DNA, and that area is processed with the swab, then placed inside a sterile swab box, and on that swab box I notate where that item was, or what item was swabbed with those swabs.
So let's go very minute, detail by detail. First thing you do is what? When you're getting swabbed, you're ready to swab an area. Do you change your gloves? I want very precise.
Yes. I get my new pair of gloves out of the box and take the new sterile swab, open the swab packaging, that is sealed and sterile, and open up a new sealed
complete your property receipt?
The property receipt is completed later on in the office, where the item is then going to be submitted to the Evidence Bureau.
When do you do your report?
The report is done following, usually when all work is done.
So in terms of the most accurate description of what is that swab is of, what would that be?
The note on the swab box.
Okay. So going back to the photos, and in terms of the process and the timing, when you're doing the swabs, is it before these photos, after these photos, just so the jury understands the way you process the car?
The way I process it is I remove all items that are deemed as evidence, and I remove those from the vehicle. And then prior to any other processing, whether that be made prints, the car is processed for possible DNA, and then there to the prints.
And to be clear, did you do any of the latent prints in this case?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Moving on to the pictures with item markers, or photo markers, 10, 11, 16 here. Were those items 16, 11 collected?
Yes, they were.
Forgive me. In terms of the numbers and the item numbers, was there a time or a number that you collected 1 through 15, 1 through 20, the items, and Ms. Carroll collected the others?
Yes, there were.
And do you recall which specific photo markers and items you were responsible for collecting?
I would have to refer to my report.
Would you look at your report and refresh your recollection of that?
Yes.
If I may approach her?
Yes.
Can you refresh your recollection?
Yes.
Okay, that being said, I'll ask again. Which items or photo markers were you responsible for collecting generically?
Items 12 through 20 were the items that I collected.
In terms of these photographs, they were all taken by you. Is that a correct statement?
Correct.
Moving on to item number 18 and 17. Did you collect those two?
Yes, I did.
19 and 20 as shown here. Did you collect those?
Yes, I did.
What are we looking at in this photo here?
This photo shows the trunk portion of the vehicle with the hatch cover and the spare tire removed.
The processing here again at what location of the car on this photo or next one?
This is the front driver's side floorboard.
Okay, you have then what photo marker is here? So what are we looking at here underneath the brake pedal?
That I believe is a spent projectile.
Is that then marked with photo marker number 24 that we're looking at in this photo?
Yes, it is.
And item number 23, the glasses case. You were documenting that? Sorry.
Correct.
On to photo marker number 25. Did you take these images here?
Yes, I did.
Photo marker 26. Did you take those?
Yes, I
Are these the items that were in the glove box?
did. Yes, they are.
In terms of this enterprise receipt that we're looking at here, does that vehicle description listed on this enterprise receipt and VIN number match the Jeep Compass that you've been looking at?
No, they do not.
And the name of the individual who rented this vehicle, that on this enterprise receipt? On the, and not the Jeep Compass, my apologies, I'll rephrase. The enterprise receipt, did it have a name of a renter on it?
Yes, it did.
And what was that?
Jameson Francois.
I'm going to move on to the next photo here. What have you done to document the scene in this photo inside this Jeep?
In this photo, it shows trajectory rods that were placed inside of the projectile defects to show an approximate path of the projectile.
Excuse me, can we approach? Sure. Explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what are these green red items that are now in the back seat of the Jeep?
These are called trajectory rods. Like I said, they are used to show the approximate path of the projectile when it struck the surface.
How many trajectory rods are in this photo that we're looking at here?
There are 7.
Going forward to the next photograph, what are we looking at here?
This is the opposite side of the rear passenger side seat, showing the trajectory rods coming through.
Objection. Same objection.
Yes, sir. Overruled.
Again, showing what?
Showing the trajectory rods coming through the back of the rear passenger seat and through to the front of the rear passenger seat.
And can you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury how you place them?
The trajectory rods are placed through one defect, pass through the object, and then through the other defect on the opposite side.
Going forward to this next photo, all the other items of evidence have been removed. So I want to go for time frame. How long after the initial processing are we talking where you're doing these trajectory runs?
I do not have time.
When we're looking at this photo here, what are we looking at?
This is the rear driver's side interior documenting a projectile defect that was in the door jamb of the rear driver's side door.
And so I'm going to go back to the last photo. If you could circle a couple of times on the screen the area that you are photographing in the next photograph. And going to the opposite angle view of that. Can you again circle the defect so it's clear? And to get this photo, how did you have to position the rear driver's side door?
The door had to be fully opened, and the defect had to be photographed from looking from the inside of the vehicle out.
So going on to the next photograph here, you mentioned prior that there was a projectile on the seat that you recovered.
Correct.
Is this the process you have to undertake?
Yes, it was.
What did you do? Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
I used a scalpel to remove the top layer of the leather, and it showed a projectile that was situated inside the fungus.
Is this another view of that process?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Did you assign a photo marker to that item and collect it?
Yes, I did.
And what are we looking at this image?
This is an image of the projectile as it was removed from the phone to be fully photographed.
Okay. So those 65 photos that you took at the processing of the Jeep, is that, we've gone through all of those. I'm going to move on now to the photos that you took of the items of evidence that you took. Investigator Carter, I'm now showing you this been marked as states EE for identification purposes. Do you recognize those photos?
Yes, I do.
Did you have an opportunity to review them before you came into court today?
I do.
Do they fairly and accurately represent the processing that you did of the items collected from the Jeep?
Yes, they do.
Here at this time, the state request states EE in as states 31.
Any objection?
No objection, but with the same representation that this contains only those photos.
That is correct, Your Honor.
No problem.
They'll be admitted with that representation.
States EE on states 31.
And that is 21 photos. So starting here at item number 12, what are we looking at here?
This is the yellow jacket that was collected from the trunk of the vehicle.
What, in terms of the item number 12 that's on here as well, is that the same yellow jacket?
Yes, it was.
Is the number 12 consistent every time you're using or photographing something from photo marker number 12?
Correct.
The other item that we see on here, kind of the L-shaped gray and white, what is that?
That is a scale.
What's the purpose of having that in your photographs?
The scale shows the size of the item that you're looking to document, and the scale also has parameters on it that allow it to be fixed if not taken at the correct angle.
Understood. Moving on to the next photo, this is the opposite side of item number 12.
Yes.
What do you do in between items to ensure that there's no cross-contamination?
In between items, the paper on the floor where the item is placed is changed every single time, and my gloves are changed in between touching my and going back to the evidence.
When you say the paper that's down there, what is that? What specific type of paper do you use?
It's called a brown craft paper.
Is it ever reused during the course of the case?
No, it is not.
Moving on to the next photo. What are we looking at here?
That is a SOC, a Jeep Compass user guide, and a box.
And what photo marker were these documented at the previous set of photos?
Photo marker 13.
Going on to this next photo, still at photo marker 13. What are you showing here?
I am showing the opposite side of both the SOC and the Jeep Compass user manual and the interior of the box.
Moving on to item number 15. That is what?
That is a disposable lighter.
Did the Miramar Police Department policies and procedures allow you to maintain that item of evidence?
No,
Why not?
because of the combustible nature of the liquid inside.
So the documentation of this evidence is just the photographs.
That is correct.
Moving on to item 16. What photo marker were these items documented under?
Photo marker 16.
And what are we looking at here?
This is a belt, a disposable lighter, a pair of scissors, and a blue container.
Inside the blue container, based on your training and experience, what did that substance appear to be?
I observed a green leafy substance inside of the container.
Did it have any odor associated with it?
I do not recall.
Moving on to the next item number, what are we looking at here?
This is a Gatorade bottle with red stains on it.
And what photo marker was it documented at?
Photo marker 17.
Moving on to the next photo marker, what are we looking at here?
This is a water bottle, I believe a black plastic cap, a Gatorade bottle, also with red stains on it, and a white plastic bag with red stains, and containing a green plastic cap and a spent bullet casing.
Moving on to the next photo. Where was this casing located when you took the item out of the car?
The casing was located in a white plastic bag that was found on the rear driver's side floorboard.
Was it visible until you removed the bag?
No, it was not.
Moving on to this next photo with the scale and the large number 18. What are we looking at here?
This is a closer-up photo of the spent cartridge casing that was collected from the white plastic bag.
And if you'd be so kind as to tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what is on the next photo that we're looking at and zoomed in on.
This is the head stamp of the spent cartridge casing that reads Blazer 40 S&W.
And I'm not going to assume anyone is familiar with firearms or anything like that. So could you please give the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what is a bullet cartridge or an unfired bullet?
A unfired bullet comprises of a projectile that is the front end of the cartridge casing, and the cartridge casing comprises of gunpowder, a primer, and when the primer is struck, the gunpowder there's an explosion that happens within the cartridge casing, expelling the projectile.
In a revolver, what happens to the casing, the cartridge casing that we're looking at here?
The cartridge casing stays within the cylinder.
If it is a semi-automatic firearm or automatic firearm, what happens to the casing?
The spent cartridge casing is ejected through the injection port on the semi-automatic weapon.
So the projectile that we're looking moving on to the next item that you collected. What were these?
These are 2 white sandals and a blue plastic container.
Is this a different blue plastic container than the one that was in the back seat?
I do not recall.
When determining the contents of this blue plastic container, what did you observe inside?
I observed an unknown green substance.
Moving on to item number 20. Where were these items recovered from?
These were at photo marker 20 to know where in the vehicle they were collected. I went to a group.
So after those photos were taken, I want to now move on to the items that you actually collected. Collect the 2 Sprite cans that were there.
Yes, I did.
Going on to the rear of the vehicle, photo markers 12, 13, and 14. Did you collect the various items listed in this photo?
Yes, I did.
Did you have help and assistance in processing this vehicle?
Yes, I did.
Who helped you?
Crime scene technician Trialk.
Did you guys have a plan of attack as to how to process the vehicle?
We split up the vehicle into certain sections, and each processes areas of the vehicle and collected the items that were in relation to those areas.
So it's clear to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what section were you assigned?
I was assigned.
Joseph,
Joseph, I want to talk a little bit about the importance, Dina had mentioned it before, that you have to, as a prosecutor, put this evidence in. It shows credibility of the investigation if it's done correctly and that you dotted I's and you cross T's. But from a forensic analyst point of view, if you have to testify on the stand and you have to offer an opinion, how much easier is it for you, or if they don't do it, how hard is it for you if these kinds of forensic pictures and things that they've done were not present? And did you think they did a good job from what we're seeing right now?
Yeah, from what we're seeing, and again, I have to caution our viewers about these images, because some of these, because I think they're probably using them on what's referred to as a limb in court, and so the contrast that you're seeing is kind of blown out at this point in time. It has nothing to do with our production staff. It has everything to do on that end. So it doesn't translate real well as far as fine detail. I suspect that these are pretty detailed photographs where you can get a real feel for what happens, because when it comes to photography at a crime scene, Bob, you essentially become a historian as a crime scene tech, and you're freezing that moment in time that is gone forever and ever, amen. And so you have to start off with what we refer to as macro photographs, where you're getting the exterior of the vehicle all the way around 360 degrees. I tell my students to follow the points of the compass. And then you step in and you get kind of an intermediate range where you get closer up on the outside, and then you go for micro photographs after that. And it all depends on how the prosecutor utilizes these photographs. It's not necessarily the fault of the crime scene tech. How are they using it? Because as you well know, you guys that prosecute cases, you're telling a story, and it's like taking pictures and putting it in a book. We take the pictures, but how are you going to utilize those pictures in order to make the jury understand and to transport them back in time to that moment when all of this evidence was captured?
Dina, let's talk death penalty cases again. And having tried them, I know that these jurors need to be absolutely convinced in the guilt phase of the case. And then, of course, the prosecutors have to meet those aggravating factors. Here we have a case where two people are being charged with this crime. If the government is not able to show who the actual shooter is, or the circumstances under which the shooting took place, which very well may have occurred in the car, it may have been spontaneous. One person may not have. I've had cases like this, had no idea this was about to go down. Do you think the jury can, even if they win the case, can rise to that level of satisfaction that the jury knows exactly what happened here? Because to me, it's really important the jury knows exactly what happened and what the motive is. Even and again, motive is not an element of the offense, but we're asking jurors to execute people.
I think that's a great question. And the defense kind of brought this up a little bit in opening because they want to use lack of motive to even help him get an acquittal. But I think your point is right, that it is especially important in the death penalty phase, because you are asking for, like you said, it to be premeditated. And, with them not having any kind of motive, it leaves it very reasonable to assume that this could have been just an argument and an instantaneous type shooting. So I think that is going to be hard in the death penalty. And not only that, but Florida just recently changed the law, as you know. So there will only need to have 8 of the 12 jurors be deciding for the death penalty, which obviously helps the prosecution, because you could have 4 people think that the motive wasn't good enough and this wasn't the death penalty enough. So this is certainly the first high-profile case out of Florida where we're seeing that reduction to the 8 jurors, and so it will be interesting to see how that plays here if it ends up to the penalty phase.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point. Having tried a death penalty case, I would love, although I don't think it's good for the interest of justice, to make it 8. Why not 4? Let's drop it down to 1. And if they can't get 1, let's just have the judge make the call. I guess eventually we can reduce it to a point where everybody can be convicted. Excellent point, Dina. And so we are going to take a quick break here. We're going to come back with more of this testimony, more of a discussion of what needs to be done by prosecutors to convince jurors to actually impose the ultimate penalty. And at lunch break, we may have an opportunity for you guys to ask some questions and debate about that, because you are our juror. We'll be right back. murder case. This is a double shooting charge for 2018 deaths of two of his friends. It is a death penalty case right now. We have a crime scene investigator who's describing crucial information, because this information, one, if it's captured properly, is going to be essentially necessary for the experts in order to formulate an opinion, which experts are allowed to do, to give to the jurors in order to support the state's case. Let's go back into court.
In your report, how did you write down which side you were responsible for?
In the report, it shows that swabs were taken from the passenger side of the vehicle, which was incorrect in the report, and was later shown as a correction in the private receipts, as well as the original swab boxes that were collected on the scene.
So let's stop for a second there and explain, when you're collecting swabs, what do you do?
I am using sterile distilled water, placing that onto a cotton swab, and passing that over, rubbing that over an area in which I either believe there may be the presence of DNA, and that area is processed with the swab, then placed inside a sterile swab box, and on that swab box I notate where that item was, or what item was swabbed with those swabs.
So let's go very minute, detail by detail. First thing you do is what? When you're getting swab near a swab area, you change your gloves. I want very precise.
Yes. I get my new pair of gloves out of the box and take the new sterile swab, open the swab packaging, and it's sealed and sterile, and open up a new sealed container of sterile water, and that water is then placed in drop form on the top of the swab, and then the swab is then rubbed over the area in which I intend to process.
Do you ever dip the swab back into the sterile water and sort of double dip it, for lack of a better term? After you swab the area, what's the next step you take?
The swab box is opened, the swabs are put inside the swab box, and that swab box is closed, and then I notate on the swab box what item was processed with the swabs.
Do you complete the property receipt at that same time?
I do not.
When do you complete your property receipt?
The property receipt is completed later on in the office, when the item is then going to be submitted to the Evidence Bureau.
When do you do your report?
The report is done following, usually, but when all work is done.
So in terms of the most accurate description of what is that swab is of, what would that be?
The note on the swab box.
Okay. So going back to the photos, and in terms of the process and the timing, when you're doing the swabs, is it before these photos, after these photos, just so the jury understands the way you process the car?
The way I process it is I remove all items that are deemed as evidence, and I remove those from the vehicle, and then prior to any other processing, whether that be made prints, the car is processed for possible DNA, and then there to latent prints.
And to be clear, did you do any of the latent prints in this case?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Moving on to the pictures with item markers, or photo markers, 10, 11, 16 here. Were those items 16, 11 collected?
Yes, they were.
Forgive me. In terms of the numbers and the item numbers, was there a time or a number that you collected 1 through 15, 1 through 20, the items, and Ms. Carroll collected the others?
Yes, there were.
And do you recall which specific photo markers and items you were responsible for collecting?
I would have to refer to my report.
Would you look at your report and refresh your recollection as to that?
Yes, it would.
If I may approach her?
Yes.
responsible for collecting numerically?
Items 12 through 20 were the items that I collected.
In terms of these photographs, they were all taken by you. Is that a correct statement?
Correct.
Moving on to item number 18 and 17. Did you collect those too?
Yes, I did.
19 and 20 as shown here. Did you collect those?
Yes, I did.
What are we looking at in this photo here?
This photo shows the trunk portion of the vehicle with the hatch covering the spare tire removed.
The processing here again at the, what location of the car on this photo or next one?
This is the front driver's side billboard.
Okay, you have, and what photo marker is here? So what are we looking at here underneath the brake pedal?
That I believe is a spent projectile.
Is that then marked with photo marker number 24 that we're looking at in this photo?
Yes, it is.
And item number 23, the glasses case. You were documenting that? Sorry.
Correct.
On to photo marker number 25. Did you take these images here?
Yes, I did.
Photo marker 26. Did you take those?
Yes, I did.
Are these the items that were in the glove box?
Yes, they are.
In terms of this enterprise receipt that we're looking at here, does that vehicle description listed on this enterprise receipt and VIN number match the Jeep Compass that you've been looking at?
No, they do not.
And the name of the individual who rented this vehicle, was that on this enterprise receipt? On the, and not the Jeep Compass, my apologies, I'll rephrase. The enterprise receipt, did it have a name of a renter on it?
Yes, it did.
And what was that?
Jameson Francois.
I'm going to move on to the next photo here. What have you done to document the scene in this photo inside this Jeep?
In this photo, it shows trajectory rods that were placed inside of the projectile defects to show an approximate path of the projectile.
Okay, there, the continuation with very, very important forensic evidence, again, to be utilized by experts, which is going to be a key in the prosecution's case. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back on the other end. Please stay with us. last couple of questions with Joseph Scott Morgan. We were talking off the record during the commercial break, and you gave us a really interesting analysis of propellants with the weapon and gunshot residue and what comes forward and what comes backwards. Is this something that would be crucial to you in your evaluation, and can you explain to our audience what that means?
Yeah, I think one of the things that you look at is what's referred to as primer residue, and primer residue is a more stable unstable chemical compound. That's where the firing pin taps the primer to strike it in order to initiate the firing process. It kind of comes out in a big balloon on the back end side. Then you have propellant residue, which issues forth out of the forward portion of the weapon. A completely different chemical structure. So that would give you an idea of potentially the orientation of an individual that had either discharged the weapon or was on the muzzle end of the weapon at that point in time. Sometimes those things have to be very fine-tuned. I'd be interested to see if they pursued it that far. And, the tale will be told in this particular case relative to all the trace evidence. You saw them doing the swabs for potential DNA because he doesn't know if there's DNA there. That's at a molecular level. You can't see it. So he's making an educated guess that there is a probability it might be there. So he's taking sterile water that he has dipped these syringes in, and he's collecting them. They're going to let them dry. And then after they do that, the scientists, the white lab coat people on the bench will take a look at it and give you a DNA structure or try to determine first off if there's anything there.
Yeah, Dina, so one of the, let's go to aggravating factors now, because that's what the government has to prove beyond the reasonable doubt to the satisfaction of each individual juror, and then collectively that the death penalty is the appropriate penalty. I just go back on my own experience with the case I was telling you guys before, where there were gang members in a vehicle and a fight broke out in the vehicle that was unanticipated, and one of the individuals pulled the gun out and shot and killed the person, and it became an issue as to who was the person that pulled the weapon out, who was the person that shot. And since there wasn't a felony happening at the time, felony murder was not charged there, so prosecutors were required to prove who the shooter was. Things like this happen out there. In order for you to get those aggravating factors, you have to really show solid proof. In your opinion, is the government going to be able to show who the actual shooter was? And when the prosecution says they don't need motive, that's true, but it's important for the jurors to understand, was this an instantaneous thing that was not premeditated, or was this in fact a premeditated act, assuming they're the ones that shot in the vehicle?
I think maybe one of the biggest wins the defense got was being able to split his trial with the co-defendant Henry, because we're definitely going to see that argument. Even if the prosecution proves this wasn't a drive-by and it happened within the vehicle with all the shell casings and their blood splatter and everything else they're going to show, we know that Melly's defense attorney is going to say that he wasn't the shooter still, because that is going to be really hard to prove, I think, conclusively. We'll see what these experts say. But kind of as Joseph says, there's so much residue, there's so much blood, you have such a small contained space. Can they really prove beyond a reasonable doubt exactly who held it and what position of the car? I mean, maybe. But then to get to the death penalty, I think that's going to be a leap, because like you said, they have not shown anything showing this is premeditated. In fact, it seems like a poorly premeditated murder, if that's the case, because of the fact that they kind of left all this evidence in the car. So I think it goes more toward this having been a spontaneous killing than a premeditation, which will, I think, make it more difficult for the death penalty for sure.
I think this is a huge point when you're trying to ask people to execute people. If it was a spontaneous thing and they can't put the gun in a particular person's hand, that could be a huge problem on the guilt phase to begin with. Guys, thank you. I know you have to go. Really appreciate your analysis. We're going to have more on the other end. Please stay with us. following, but for those who are joining, my name is Bob Bianchi, and we are in Broward County, Florida today for the trial of Jamel Demins. I have guests that are actually in studio replacing the two guests we had before. They are heavyweights, so I'm really excited about this. So we know that the defendant is a Florida rapper who's charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and is accused of killing Anthony William, also known as YNW SACKCHASER, and Christopher Thomas Jr., also known as YNW JUVY. Back in 2018, the prosecutors are saying this is a death penalty case, and if the 24-year-old is convicted, the jury will make a decision as to whether it will be a life sentence or whether or not the death penalty is the appropriate thing to be imposed in this case. So far, our guests have not said that this is really a solid case from what we know about it right now in order to convince jurors to impose the ultimate penalty of death. But we have seen this morning that there's testimony from forensic examiners that took a lot of crime scene photos. And again, if you're just joining us, the importance of these crime scene photos is because they're going to become crucial evidence for the experts in the case. So let's go back to that Florida courtroom.
Okay. Investigator Carter, as you were saying, explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what are these green, red items that are now in the backseat of the Jeep?
These are called trajectory rods. Like I said, they are used to show the approximate path of projectile when it struck the surface.
How many trajectory rods are in this photo that we're looking at here?
There are 7.
Going forward to the next photograph, what are we looking at here?
This is the opposite side of the rear passenger side seat, showing the trajectory rods coming.
Objection. Same objection.
Yes, sir.
Overruled.
Again, showing what?
Showing the trajectory rods coming through the back of the rear passenger seat and through to the front of the rear passenger seat.
And can you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury how you place them?
The trajectory rods are placed through one defect, pass through the object, and then through the other defect on the opposite side.
Going forward to this next photo, all the other items of evidence have been removed. So I want to go for time frame. How long after the initial processing are we talking where you're doing these trajectory rods?
I do not have time for that.
When we're looking at this photo here, what are we looking at?
This is the rear driver's side interior door and floorboard seat.
Looking here at this photo, what are you documenting and where is it in relation to that last photo?
I am documenting a projectile defect that was in the door jamb of the rear driver's side door.
And so I'm going to go back to the last photo. If you could circle a couple of times on the screen the area that you are photographing in the next photograph. And going to the opposite angle view of that. Can you again circle the defect so it's clear? And to get this photo, how did you have to position the rear driver's side door?
The door had to be fully opened and the defect had to be photographed from looking from the inside of the vehicle out.
So going on to the next photograph here, you mentioned prior that there was a projectile on the seat that you recovered.
Correct.
Is this the process you have to undertake?
Yes, it was.
What did you do? Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
I used a scalpel to remove the top layer of the leather, and it showed a projectile that was situated inside the foam of the seat.
with that process?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Did you assign a photo marker to that item and collect it?
Yes, I did.
And what are we looking at this image?
This is an image of the projectile as it was removed from the phone to be fully photographed.
Okay. So those 65 photos that you took at the processing of the Jeep, is that, we've gone through all of those. I'm going to move on now to the photos that you took of the items of evidence that you collected. Investigator Carter.
All right, like I said, in studio, we got two pros. Richard Schoenstein is with us. He is a litigator, and Brian Buckmeyer from the Law and Crime Network, and the co-host of The Daily is with us. Brian, let me go to you first. What we have here is a situation in which it may be difficult for the prosecution to prove who the actual shooter is between the two co-defendants. This is a death penalty case. My experience tells me jurors want to be completely convinced as to who did it, and then they've got to weigh aggravating factors, and one of them is premeditation. Brian, I've been involved in a case almost exactly like this. Alleged gang members driving in a vehicle, no premeditation to kill somebody. A fight breaks out in the middle of the car. Somebody pulls a gun out and kills somebody. That is not going to be a death penalty case. In fact, it could also not even be a murder conviction if those jurors cannot come to a decision beyond a reasonable doubt as to who the shooter is. What are your thoughts?
I think you're completely right. From multiple standpoints, not just the who had done it in terms of, is it Ynw Melly? Is it the co-defendant? Hey, another person could have entered into the car, gone into an argument, and shot at these four young men as they're all trying to fight back. We don't know. And I think there's enough reasonable doubt that the defense attorney can sprinkle it around and say, you can't tell me it was my client. You can tell me that he was in the vehicle, but you can't tell me that he's the one that did the shooting. And while motive is something that we as defense attorneys say, prosecution doesn't have to prove it, I may or may not know it, whatever it may be, I think motive is a big part of the case here because I only have so many tattoos on my body, one of them being for my brother. I can't imagine that a person puts a tattoo of someone on their body and then murders them years later. I can't imagine that you are financially invested in someone's career and then murder them later. It doesn't fit for all of the theories that we have when motive typically applies in a murder case.
Yeah, and Richard, Brian brings up a very, very important point. The judge can instruct the jury all they want that in a murder case, motive is not an element of the offense, but the defense is arguing, to Brian's point, that I think, one, you're not going to be able to describe who the shooter is if you can even prove the shooting occurred inside the car. And why would he be the person that would murder somebody that's so close to him, which kind of gets to the idea that there's no motive. What are your overall thoughts of the case?
Yeah, it does seem like a hard case to prove because you've got to get over several different hurdles, right? First of all, you have to show that the shots came from inside the car and not outside the car, which was the initial story that was being told. And then even if you get shots in the car, you have to tie them to the defendant. I mean, maybe the two guys shot at each other. Maybe somebody else shot at them. Maybe there's a person who intervened and then disappeared. You don't know. And the motive thing just complicates it for the reasons both of you guys are saying. Like, if you can't show a good reason for the defendant to commit this crime, and the forensics are not enough to tie him in particular, it becomes a tough sell.
Brian, let's go right to the death penalty aggravating factors. As we all know, the prosecutor has to prove at least one aggravating factor beyond a reasonable doubt. Each juror has to make an individual determination that not only has it been proven, but the death penalty is the appropriate penalty. And one of the aggravating factors they have here is the heinous, cruel, and atrocious nature of the killing. It was premeditated. It was by involving gangs. Do you find that this falls within the heinous, cruel, and atrocious manner of killing?
So, anytime you kill someone, it's heinous. Anytime you take a life, it's cruel. But if the rule absorbs or swallows the exception, it's no longer a rule. I think in a case like here, the defense attorney, who I think is very talented, just looking at their opening statements, can say it's not just that it's a murder, that it's cruel. You have to differentiate between all murders and all cruelty. And I think in the case here, what I would point to is the video of them leaving the recording studio. For you, you're a guest here. This studio is where you come and you bless us with your knowledge. But for Bob and I, this is our place of work. You and I leave here, Bob, as co-workers. We'll go get a drink. We'll go hang out. If they saw video of me and you leaving the studio and then one of us would murder, you'd be like, no, these guys are boys. They're making money together. They're doing shows together. Where's the cruelty and the heinousness before the murder? It's not there, so what would happen at the murder? I think that video is going to be very helpful come sentencing.
Wow, really, really interesting points. And that's why this is really a fascinating case. And again, I'll go back to having tried death penalty cases, and one of the first things that we say is in the guilt phase, we need those jurors to be absolutely convinced as to who the person was that committed the murder, and that it has such an emotional and visceral reaction that when we go into the sentencing phase, you hope that they're going to oppose the ultimate penalty. Guys, thank you for that commentary. We've got a lot more with these two excellent guests on the other end of the break. We'll be right back. Ynw Melly, whose real name is Jamel Demins. He is charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder back in 2018 for the shooting death of Anthony Williams, also known as YNW SACKCHASER, and Christopher Thomas Jr., also known as YAMW JUVY. Law and Crime Correspondent Bryson Paul is on the ground for us here at the Law and Crime Network at the Broward County Courthouse. Bryson, good morning, good welcome, good afternoon to the show. Love having you out there. Hey, give us a real rundown. Like, what's going on there? What are your initial thoughts about how this trial's going?
Good afternoon, Bob. For day 2 of this trial, for the Ynw Melly trial, it's been majority handled by the prosecution, who called up 4 witnesses so far. They continued their testimony with Morgan Curry, crime scene technician, and then they moved on to Ynw Melly, who's a forensic or a 29-year analyst for fingerprints, and then they moved on to Christopher Carter, who is also a crime scene investigator for the Fort Lauderdale PD.
So Bryson,
and they had the they had Raymond Maycott, the person who fingerprinted Ynw Melly when he turned himself in
Bryson,
on February 13th.
From what you're hearing inside of the courtroom, is there anything about the forensics that you're listening to far that's stuck out in your mind as being important for the prosecution?
Nothing of importance, just more review, if whatnot. It was just reviewing all of the fabrics and the items that were in the Jeep the night of the murder, and nothing that would point to Melly as being the person they accused.
Yeah, let me ask you, Bryson, based on everything you're listening to, the opening statements, the testimonies coming out, a lot of us here in the studio, our legal experts, are talking about the idea that, I mean, this is a death penalty case, and the prosecutors really have to show who the person was that fired the shots. This wasn't a spontaneous thing. It wasn't something where an argument happened and somebody got shot. It was an actual premeditated thing. Do you think the prosecution is going to have trouble showing who was the shooter and that this was in fact premeditated?
I believe right now they are having trouble showing that based off the surveillance videos from the hours leading up to the murders, and it didn't show anything odd, anything out of the ordinary. It showed just Ynw Melly and his friends that are now deceased just casually walking around, casually conversating with one another. It didn't show anything odd that shows that they had any animosity towards each other.
Okay, we know that rapper Bozy was in the courtroom yesterday. Did he make an appearance today, and any other famous faces that we're seeing inside that courtroom?
Actually, no. Lil Boosie did not make an appearance today. He actually didn't return to the courtroom after lunch on day 1. And no, it was a pretty light courtroom. It was more, I would say it was only 25 people in there that came in. Mostly the victims' families and Jamie King, Ynw Melly's mother, his brother B Slime, a couple other male figures that followed, and that was about it. And then interns who were reviewing the court case.
Yeah, Bryson, you mentioned that we have families that are supporting the defendants and the victims in the case. What's the temperature inside that courtroom between those two competing interests?
You can definitely both have looked crossed back and forth at each other on multiple occasions. As evidence and video shows of the now deceased victims, you can see the victims' families even look directly at Melly with the same look on their face. You can see when they have the videos of Melly and his group of friends walking around, even leading up to the murder, you'll see Melly's mom look over at the victim's family to see what their reactions are.
Yeah.
And even at one point in time, when we were about to break, the victim Ynw Juvy's mother even got up in the middle of the gallery and stared directly at Ynw Melly until he looked at her.
Yeah, I'm wondering, has the judge, let's talk about the judge and the lawyering. Sometimes these can be really contentious court proceedings. So my question is, one, how are the lawyers and the judges playing in the sandbox, as we say? And two, have there been any applications by the lawyers to stop the jeering and the staring and the antics if in fact they're happening in front of the jury?
Cooperative with each other, and